You've experienced some bad cultures. We have too, and we're trying to build something pretty special on our side. But let's hear just some of the stories that came along the last kind of 20 plus years.
For me, one of the mistakes that I made, I wouldn't call it a mistake, maybe it's just timing, but when I started this, I did not want a team. I did not want employees. I was in a consulting job in my own company, like I had mentioned earlier, and I had a few dozen customers, and some of them weren't the best cultures. For that first 5 years or so, I built the mindset that I did not want a team. I did not want to manage people. So up till about 10-ish years ago, I had that. And once I broke through that and I realized that, quote, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Once I realized that's actually the case, that's when things started to really expand business-wise.
Welcome to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, a podcast for purpose-led entrepreneurs looking to master the art of buying, selling, or optimizing small businesses. Your host, Chris Seegers, founder of Exceptional Companies and author of Selling Main Street, has over a decade of experience starting, buying, and leading successful businesses. He's here to guide you through the complex world of business transactions and growth. Each week, we dive deep with actionable insights, expert interviews, and real-world strategies to activate and equip you to live exceptionally and build exceptional businesses. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Here's your host, Chris Seegers.
Welcome to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, where we discuss how to buy, sell, and exit your business to serve your personal and wealth goals. I've got a really fun guest on today that I've never actually met in person. Dean Mathews, who is the CEO and owner of On the Clock. And we're actually going to focus on a quote that he had that I really love, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. But Dean is just a brilliant business owner. He's built a SaaS company with what it sounds like a great culture. So we're going to dig into that. Dean, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I really appreciate you having me. Honored. Thank you.
Oh man, it's going to be so much. It's always fun. But we always start with sharing the story. People love to hear the story behind the business and the business owner, but love to hear your story as far back as you want to go, what business you're in, how and why you pursued business, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with the kitchen table story, I call it. That's kind of the founding of On the Clock. But I'll actually kind of jump back even earlier than that. Even in my I'd say mid-teens, I always had that entrepreneurial spirit, I'm mechanical, so I hung a sign up in front of my house, lawnmower repair, lawn equipment. So I was fixing lawnmowers and, doing those types of things when I was young, and, just always had this interest in business, and, got into the workforce and got into kind of the electronics, computerized side of some industrial machines, and made some headway with that. Again, I was working for another company, but just always had that want to do something on my own. And
why is that, Dean? I always like to hear, what was that drive? Was it just, hey, I want to do whatever I want to do when I want to do it? Or what was the driving factor behind wanting to be an entrepreneur?
I'm just now recently being able to put my finger on it, to be honest. All those years, and actually a lot of times if you ask especially young, 20, 30-year-old entrepreneurs, they just say, I just want to do something. Or some will be like, I want to make a lot of money. And, that's great, but that shouldn't be your primary reason. But for me, I wanted to do something just big. I just wanted to do something that touched the world, that when I left it, it was bigger than me. I wasn't really thinking that way when I was young. I just wanted to do something, right? I just wanted to make my mark. It wasn't really about making a lot of money or being super successful or anything like that. I just wanted to do something that really had value in other people's lives. So that was really the reason why. And it took a while to figure out exactly why, but now that's pretty much my big reason. And that's still the reason I do it today.
Can I pause?
Want to help people.
Can I pause there? Because that's such a big point that I don't think is being communicated, especially in social media, which is making money is okay. But if your sole aim is to make a lot of money in entrepreneurship, this is my belief, you will not go very far. Because if you're good at entrepreneurship, you'll make a lot of money, but then you get unfocused on other things. And I've seen a lot of people make a lot of money and then lose a lot of money. But the folks that I've seen that have been successful for decades, not just a decade, but decades, are the people like you, Dean, that say, I have a purpose of serving people in some form or fashion that's going to be bigger than what I can ever accomplish. And so that's a worthy cause to pursue my whole life. I love that, man. That's really important.
Yeah, and actually, if you look, and I've studied, plenty of entrepreneurs, that tends to be the guiding theme, that if you listen enough, that you will actually find underneath. And so, for me, I actually view the profit, growth, money, if you will, really as a side effect or evidence that you did a good job at providing value to people, to helping them. That's really my view on it. And honestly, the ones that adhere to that view are generally the much more successful. These are the ones that last multiple decades, the things they've built. I wouldn't say anybody, but anybody in a way could start a business and you could make $1 million in a few years, but will it continue? What is your motivation? You got to really think about that. It's real important.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, so you had this desire. So you're fixing machines. You have this desire. You're different than most people wanting to live within the matrix and be a W-2. What happened next?
So really one of my first steps was going out on my own to do computer consulting when I was really writing software for companies. So I had I didn't start with this, but I started with one or two companies here in the Detroit metro area, and I would literally drive to them and talk with them about their needs. Mostly it could be automotive. I dealt with insurance companies, really any company that needed custom software. So that was a really big thing for me. I was also autodidactic, so I taught myself to write software, lots of books and lots of trial and error. So I'd go into these companies, figure out what they needed. It might be an inventory system or an accounting system, and I wrote software for them. Got to meet a lot of great people, got to experience a lot of different cultures, and that was a phenomenal time of my life. But along the way, the internet happened, right? This was 20 some years ago now, so kind of dating myself. But when that came out, I was like, we could write software for the internet, and it could reach dozens, hundreds, tens of thousands, millions of people, right? So really started kind of dabbling my toes into that. And these were not for customers. Or not for my consulting customers. These were online SaaS companies. These were for companies that wanted an online SaaS solution like we could offer. So, I had a payment solution, built a survey solution, kind of an online database solution. These are all different products, different websites that I built. But the one that really stuck was On the Clock. And that one was and is time tracking. So time tracking for employees, clock in, clock out for hours for payroll effectively. That's where the kitchen table story starts. So, I was sitting, this was late 2003, so 23 years ago now. I was sitting at my kitchen table and I was reading through these accounting small business forums on a Friday night, probably around midnight. That's what I was doing while my buddies were out, doing their thing. Reading through these forums, and I started to recognize this trend, and there was all these accountants, CPAs, small business owner types. They were all asking for an online system to track employee time for payroll. And I had never really done that, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, I could do that for them. So literally, like the next day, started researching it, started trying to talk to whoever I could talk to, and put together some initial specs and built it myself back then. And within about 3-ish months, had the first version of On the Clock out. And really that was one of my products at that time. Didn't know it was going to turn out to be what it did today. But I really treated everything with really great care and did my absolute best in the early days to be the support person, the developer, the marketing person, everything for all the companies. And On the Clock really started from there. And for the first, honestly, 10 years, I call it more of a passion project. It wasn't my primary income. It was passive-ish side income. But over the years, I just kept maintaining it, kept adding to it, kept listening to customers. And then about 10-ish years ago, well, maybe about 10 years ago, really realized this is something that can be way bigger than me. So took
What
all my other
led to that
businesses.
realization, Dean? Because that's a long time
It
for
is
somebody
yeah.
wanting to do a startup to be like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
10 years just to get to
Very-
the point of deciding it's serious. So
Very
walk
different
us
route,
through that.
yeah. Yeah, I was serious the whole time about all of them, but I was very diversified. It's just I had like 5 different businesses going on, and I kind of had this thought that I didn't want a team, I didn't want employees. I'd seen some bad cultures and was shaped by those, unfortunately. I've gotten out of that, by the way. But yeah, 10 years is a long time. But really decided to rehome all of my other businesses and customers and focus 100% on that. My brother Mark wanted to do something similar, so he came in and joined the company. We hired Samantha, who was our very first employee. She's still with us. She's moved up several levels in her career, so she's awesome. And really fast forward to today, now we have about 28 people total that serve on the clock, about 16,000 customers. And we have a 1 million monthly user goal. So we're probably about 18% there now, but yeah, that's our goal. And currently now we've totally expanded. We do scheduling, time tracking, payroll, and HR functions for really any business from 1 to 100 employees.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah.
How'd you sustain it sounds like you maybe had some other outside income or were doing consulting or something else, but for somebody who's trying to get through that first 3 to 5 years, what's your counsel? Because we've started half our businesses and bought half our businesses. Man, starting them is so hard.
Oh yeah.
Getting momentum, getting enough cash flow to pay employees. Like you said, you're doing all the hats, your operations, your sales, your everything. What would be some counsel for somebody who's thinking about starting a business?
Yeah, really there's two paths. You could bootstrap it like I did. If you have the technical skill or whatever business it is you're starting, the skill to operate and build that business, it's your own time, right? It's your time. I'm not going to say it's free, but you're at least not paying for it. So really just be dedicated, find an idea that, again, going back to where we started, that serves people, that actually solves a problem. If you're not solving problems, you're not going to go anywhere, I promise. Find that idea, vet it out, talk to a few potential customers, and then stick to it. You need to commit 100%. And I'm not talking about committing for a few weeks or a few months. You need to commit for years. And when you find that idea that has real traction, that is a real problem that you're solving, and you commit to it, even if it's just your own time that you're spending, 98% of the time you will be successful. Where I see them all drop off, and I love talking to entrepreneurs all the time, they'll have either the idea didn't solve a problem, it wasn't of value to somebody, or they don't commit. They try it for a few months and they don't have the $100,000 check every month coming in and they give up. So it's really those two things: idea that serves people and commitment. And I'm not kidding when I say high 90s. It's there. That's what I've witnessed.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Dan Sullivan, he's the coach, strategic coach. He owns that business and he's got a bunch of books. He always says there's no unrealistic goals, only unrealistic timelines.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. You can do anything if you give yourself enough time, but you got to stick with it and be patient and consistent. That's really good. Let me ask, this is a kind of a divergent question, but since you're somebody who's a coder, who's been through kind of the internet boom, what's your view on just Claude Code, vibe coding, where things are heading, what is actually going to shake out through all of this in the next 3 to 5 years, and where some opportunities might be for people that are looking to get into the entrepreneurial space?
Yeah, no, really good question. Yeah, AI, obviously, it's new-ish, and really just this last I'd say 12 months, it's like really like blossomed into what it can do. I'm a huge proponent of AI. I use it personally for business, for strategy, for, I built vibe coded tools that I use all the time. In our software department, we're leveraging it heavily. We're not vibe coding, but we're agentic engineering is the term. So
What does that mean, Dean? How does that? How's that?
Vibe coding, I'm sure everybody's heard of it, but it's effectively using one of the tools, and any of them do a great job nowadays, of effectively just describing in plain English the application that you're trying to develop, right? And it works at small scale. Haven't seen anything really production go out in it, and definitely not something that's like SaaS or multi-tenant that could handle hundreds, thousands, or millions of customers. But I have built some really amazing tools in it for internal use, all the way to, what we were focusing on is agentic engineering. So we have software developers in-house, and we will never not have software developers. The goal is with them is to use AI to effectively write the code for them, with them being the architect, the brains, still having a full understanding of what's happening. Black boxing your code or your product is a horrible idea. And anybody that's going down the vibe coding for like a production type app will end up there. And that's not a good place you want to be, because when things go wrong, if you don't understand it, guess what? You're not fixing it. So, but yeah, internally we use it in a lot of our processes. Chad, my marketing director, has built some amazing tools with it, internal tools. So yeah, we love it. There's a lot of doom and gloomers out there, and there's very opposite ends to the whole thing. But I think it's going to end in a really good place. I'm very optimistic about it. And I think we'll be doing a lot of learning along the way as to how far it can go and can't go. And I think there's a lot of predictions that it's going to go a lot further than it actually will.
Okay, let's take it back to small business again. So
Sure.
We're using it internally, same thing. And we've built these operating systems, the Exceptional Life operating system, Exceptional Business operating system, and Exceptional Wealth operating system. And the thesis is you should have a plan for your life, your business, and your wealth. They should all communicate. They have very similar cadences and tools. And we've never seen anybody kind of combine them and put them into something that's really simple. What I'm getting stuck with, and I think a lot of business owners, is I've kind of vibe coded this like operating system. Hey, this is how it needs to look, kind of a wireframe, right? Mm-hmm. But then it's really difficult to find somebody that has your expertise, but also can kind of take what I know and put it into, bridge the vibe code to the actual software to where we could go sell it to 10,000 people.
Yeah, product.
How would you approach that? Yeah, how would you approach that for other business owners that are kind of getting into the same thing? They're like, I have all these creative ideas and we need to get them to our customers. But like you said, we've kind of paused because I'm like, I don't want to go create something that we don't have oversight of how to fix it and then go sell it. And then it's a great product and it breaks. And then everybody's frustrated because we can't fix it.
So you are in the same camp that a lot of smart business people are in. Just a few weeks ago, I went to SaaStr in Silicon Valley, kind of one of the premier meets for anybody involved in SaaS, software as a service. Went there. My primary goal of going was really to talk to other CEOs, CFOs, people in my space, people like me. And I did. I talked to dozens and dozens of people. Anybody that I could sit down and talk to, I talked to. And that was really actually one of my main questions. How are you using AI? How are you doing it? What are you using it for internally? Are you building it into your product? What do you see the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years looking like? And the universal answer that I got is, I don't know. So everybody is in this place right now. We're in a holding pattern. We're in a bit of a holding pattern. We've seen some things where we know it's going to go. But what you're talking about, building those internal tools with Cloud Code or whichever tool you're using, how can I distribute those to my customer? Right now, there isn't a really good mechanism for that. But what will happen, and I'm very sure of this, is that over the next 12, 18 months, we will start to see the tools themselves. Even now, they're starting to have, I guess, what you might call marketplaces and areas where you could download or grab other people's tools, plugins, components, and such. Each one calls them something slightly different, but we're starting to see that right from the frontier companies themselves. So, and then there'll be add-ons as well. So I think the best answer that I would have right now for anybody in your predicament, and somewhat really mine and anybody listening, is just keep thinking, keep working, keep getting these ideas down, do your best to develop them, but just kind of wait for a little while, because the distribution for these types of ideas is not built yet. And if you're really, really smart, figure out how to distribute this, because that will be a huge thing. So that whoever figures that out, probably be the Frontier Labs, but whoever figures that out is gonna, they'll make some money, and they'll be very
for sure. Yeah, I've heard a term, you probably heard it too. It's called the AI gravestones or graveyard. It's like everybody's building these things that get kind of where I am. I'm like, hey, I'm like 70% done, and I can help somebody with the last 30%, but I'm not sure who to go to. It's also, as a business owner, you're trying to be a good fiduciary. So you're like, I don't want to go spend 100 to 200 grand of old school software coding if in 3 months there's something else that's, not that it's going to be free or as cheap as Claude or some of these other platforms are. I'm sure there's going to be a cost, but maybe it's a quarter of the cost for a product that's incredible.
Yeah, no, and that is 100%. As the longer we go, the greater X reduction in cost, or increase in productivity, if you will, goes up. We're shooting for about a 4 to 5X in about 12 months, just as far as productivity, the speed that we get things out with the same quality level and the same thought put into it, of course. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're actually looking internally for our product for the ideas to be the bottleneck, not the development of ideas. So right now, in almost every product, it's the development that's the bottleneck. So we're going to flip-flop that.
I love that. That's amazing. A question that we love to ask our potential clients is, do you know what your business is worth? And if you sold your business today, would it fulfill your personal and financial goals? If you're a successful business owner, but you don't know when or how to sell your business, and if you've ever wondered what each additional day in your business is actually costing you, we'd love to chat. If you're ready to spend more time with your family, your friends, or traveling, come sit down with our team, because when you work with exceptional business advisors, we'll help you build a blueprint to sell your business successfully and help you create, capture, and achieve your dream life. Don't wait for the right time. The time's now. Go ahead and scan the QR code or book a discovery appointment at excoadvisors.com. Okay, what are some of your favorite stories, getting back to scaling, about scaling a startup, some of the cool things or tough things you had to go through? And then after that, let's dig into culture. What makes a good company? You've experienced some bad cultures. We have too, and we're trying to build something pretty special on our side. But let's hear just some of the stories that came along the last kind of 20 plus years.
Yeah, I could say probably a big one, which actually would lead into the culture discussion, is bringing on your first team or just even your first person. For me, one of the mistakes that I made, I wouldn't call it a mistake, maybe it's just timing, but when I started this, I did not want a team. I did not want employees. I was in a consulting job in my own company, like I had mentioned earlier, and I had a few dozen customers, and some of them weren't the best cultures, and I kind of got this inside view of some really bad cultures, and it kind of poisoned me a little bit, I'll be honest. For that first 5 years or so, I built the mindset that I did not want a team. I did not want people. I did not want to manage people. So up till about 10-ish years ago, I had that. And once I broke through that and I realized that, quote, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Once I realized that's actually the case, that's when things started to really expand business-wise. I did overcome that.
Let's pause right there, though, Dean.
Yeah.
So, kind of similar question. Let's go another level deeper. What changed that? Because that's a huge mindset shift. Was it Was it just kind of death by a thousand paper cuts? You're like, finally, all right, I know I got to hire people. Or was there some like pivotal moment where it was just like, hey, this has to happen? Like, walk us through that, because that's actually, for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially solopreneurs, they may be making $500,000 a year and traveling and that sort of thing. And I'm like, you don't have a sellable business, you don't have a scalable business. It's still great if that's what you want for your life. It's not a bad thing. No. But walk us through that, because I think that is a mindset shift that a lot of folks are probably thinking about.
Yeah, I think, and you actually hit a point right there, is right around that time, I reached this conclusion, I guess, that what I had was effectively a lifestyle business. It was great. It would provide, I had income, the business was running, but I couldn't scale. I realized that it couldn't, I wanted to do something really big, and I couldn't just do that on my own. I was one person, right? I was doing everything. And I wasn't doing everything the best, right? I mean, if you were trying to do 6 different things, you can't do it all yourself. So it kind of came to the conclusion that, and I think one of the biggest ones was actually support calls, emails, chats. We had that going, but I could not keep up, and they were queuing up, and we had a lot of really unhappy customers back then. And so I was like, okay, I need to break out of this mentality. And once I did that, it literally took like one day. Once I got to it and said, okay, I'm going to break out of this, the next day I was gung-ho. I'm figuring out what the job description is going to be. I'm starting to talk to people. I'm starting to research, what's the best way to hire? What should I look for? And, I broke out of it super quick. But it was gradual. And then just kind of made a decision one day. And the next day I was full bore on build a team. So, and then, we started building, and now we're sitting at 28 people. So yeah, that was kind of the story for me.
So as we think about building culture, so you come out of maybe some situations that aren't positive, right? Maybe some negative reinforcement. So then as you're thinking about this, right, you have a blank slate, which most entrepreneurs do, right? They're like, all right, I'm employee number 1 and employee number 2 is coming. How did you approach your hiring, your culture, your thoughts around how do I build something great as opposed to something that just creates capital and maybe isn't great for your employees?
Yeah, super great question. And that is actually the basis of everything we have today. So during that decision, that day, part of the decision was to bring somebody on. We were just thinking one person at the time. But in my mind, it was 100%, we were not going to have those bad cultures that I experienced. I did not want the people in the back against the people in the front, and it was just bad. So first, just really made a real firm statement with myself. That was not what we were going to have. Then I remember I started it was usually a Google Doc or something. I just started writing down the attributes of what I wanted our culture to be like, and just really started iterating on those over, probably a few weeks. Then I was like, I need to write down our values. So I started writing down our values. They're the same ones we have today. And I use that as a tool to guide what we have today, culture, our positive culture, but also hiring too. So during hiring, I was looking for people with our values that had a similar mindset as us, people that wanted to grow, people that were curious, people that were doers, people that cared about other people. So these are the things that we looked for. And I still sit in on every single hire for at least a short period of time to look for those values. And so I have the final yes or no. I mean, I think our people know now. It's in them too. They could do it themselves. But yeah, that was really kind of the founding principles of hiring.
I love that. And so we've got a tool that we've created for our clients, and it's exactly that. We call them guiding principles. A lot of people know them as core values, but we believe the same thing. The first interview should be all about core values, because you can teach anybody anything. But if there's a core value misalignment, you're never going to bring that into congruence. If your team's all about service and teamwork and they're all about themselves and kind of the solo thing, you're never going to bring that into congruence. So that's really special, and I think is a great tool and mental model for solopreneurs as they're starting to hire. Exactly what you did, Dean. Get the main important things down on a piece of paper. your mission, your vision, your core values, and really iterate on it for a while until you get ones that you're like, these are the people I want to journey with because this is who I am. And ultimately, a lot of businesses are driven by the CEO or founder, whoever, that person's core values. You're like, I want to build a business that is in alignment with who I am, has congruence, to where when I show up to work, I don't feel like I have to put on a mask or change who I am. So that's amazing. Okay, let me ask a little bit of a different question. So you start building this great culture. And I think everybody, when they think about culture, they say, yeah, I want to build a good culture and I want to be part of a good culture. But there's actually not a ton of great content, I don't think, because I've read almost not every, I read a lot on business, just on actually executing on culture on a day-to-day perspective. So we use a lot of scorecards where we actually measure culture and the things that we say. But how have you done that? How have you said, hey, we say we're this core value, but we also have a way of measuring it to where we know at the end of the year we've done those things? How should an entrepreneur think about that?
Yeah, no, super great question. So 100% correct. Your values are what set your culture. The very first step to culture and setting it is that typically the owner, whoever is in charge of the company, needs to embody that. I mean, you absolutely, if you're going to say, our first value is passion for people, if you're going to say that that's our value and that is my value as the owner, you have to act it out. You have to genuinely express that you care about people and that you're passionate for their careers, for their home life, for bringing them up into the right in the world. And, another one of our values is being a doer. Doers are the ones that just see a problem in front of them and just get it done and move past it and figure it out. If I didn't exhibit those values, my team would never run. They look at me like a fraud. 2, they would definitely never exhibit those values that I want them to have. So it's the very first thing is getting your values down, internalizing them. For one, they should be internalized from the beginning, so don't just make them up. And also for your values, it took me like 4 months to get them. I didn't invent them. They were already there. It's just surfacing them, uncovering them is what it was. So take your time with those, study them, remember them, make sure that they're actually yours and you remember them, and then just act them out. And you can put them in posters and put them on your website, and that's great. And we do that too. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have to embody them, and you have to choose, and you have to monitor your people to make sure that they are embodying them as well. And that's really what shapes the culture. And you mentioned measuring it. So it is a bit subjective sometimes because, one of ours is, passion for people, right? How do I measure that passion? It's an emotion in a lot of ways, or an expression of an emotion. But the way that we do it, for one, I pay attention. So my direct reports, we have one-on-ones at a minimum of every 2 weeks. Some are weekly, but some are bi-weekly. We have quarterly, what we call connect and reflects. They're like a mini annual, if you will. I think 1 year is way too long for somebody to know if they're doing good or bad. And then our annual. So in those meetings, we have Amanda and myself have built, she's my HR and operations person, have built effectively documents in a system that we record these meetings. And what some of them are adherence to values. So, are they adhering to this? Are they exhibiting this? And, it is a little bit subjective to the person writing them down. I do for my direct reports. Everybody else does it for all their direct reports. But at the end of a quarter, end of the year, you can have some data based on, are these values being used and exhibited and embodied by my team? Yeah. So
that's really good.
Really the best way we found.
Yeah, I heard 2 things that you said that have served us really well. One is measuring a lot more often, so every week or every other week, and then doing quarterly, whatever you want to call them. We do our we run EOS, so we do quarterly rock setting and then just kind of reflection on the past. What did we do well? What did we not do well? And then what we do kind of our state of the company, which is just going through the core values again. Hey, and honestly, like no one is 100%, including me. So I can say, hey
We're
guys,
human, right?
I think I did this pretty well, but I probably didn't do this that well last quarter. And so that's one that I think I'm going to prioritize this quarter to get back in alignment. But I think that measuring often, we always tell folks, hey, within 30 to 45 days, you'll know if you're going to be a fit for our team. We think our interviewing process has selected the right candidate. But at the end of the day, like you're going to know every single week whether you're winning or losing on our team. You're going to have a scorecard that's not only performance-based, but also culture-based, and we're going to be talking about it as a team and individually. And pretty quickly, you'll see if, hey, this is a fit for me and has the right flavor for where I want to go for a long time, or if it doesn't. And sometimes it doesn't, and you're like, hey, I would rather you find this out and be able to go find something else within 30 days than you're staying here for 2 years and no one's really monitoring it, so you're miserable and they don't realize it and that sort of thing. So that's really good. I love that. So what has radically changed, and this may go back to kind of the AI question, but what has radically changed in your business over the last 3 years, and what's pretty steady Eddie, like, hey, we'll always be doing these type of things, and these things have changed quite a bit?
I'd say for us in particular, probably the one thing that's changed, I'd say in the last 3 to 4 years-ish, we have built director level positions for each department that we have. So, and we've hired higher level talent people to actually, lead those departments. So for myself, even though I'd say like 4 or 5 years ago, we had probably, I think we were at like 16, 18 people then, a lot of people, and we had like leads, if you will. But really a number of years ago, 22-ish, really started to realize that, another one of these aha moments, I cannot do all these things through myself. So really had to hire experts. I always say that I want people that are in the room that are smarter than me at their own craft. So, if we hire somebody for product, Steve, my product manager, is better at it than I am because he's done it for 20 years, just that for 20 years. So that was probably one of the biggest shifts in the last few years that we've had, is just bringing in that top level talent for all the different functions, we call them departments, that a business has. So, and that's actually extremely important because, if you have this bigger business and if you are a key man or key woman, and God forbid something happens to you, the business will not survive. If you had a health condition or whatever it might be, that is a real big liability for your company. So that's not the only reason. I mean, that's actually more of an auxiliary reason. I'm healthy and active, but you never know. But to have those key pieces were one of the biggest things that I've had in the last few years. Yeah, those key people.
I love that. Yeah. And honestly, when you grow, if you want to sell your business eventually and you're trying to grow enterprise value as opposed to just grow a business, if you want to build a sellable, valuable business, owner concentration is the number one thing that 100%. Buyers or banks or private equity guys are going to ding you on. And it's actually, it takes time, but it's something that is beneficial to you as an owner anyways. It's going to give you time back. It's going to give you more freedom. But it just creates a much more valuable, sustainable, long-term business. I love Jim Collins and have met him a couple times, and all his books on Good to Great, Great to Last, and all those. It's all about, a leader that was there, right? That was dynamic and part of the conversation, but had a team that if that person died, they'd be okay. And I can say a lot of the businesses that we sell, unfortunately, are being sold because of some sort of distress issue. It could be a health issue that, hey, the person's fine now, but it triggered this thought of, oh, I had a mini heart attack, and you know what? I do need to sell this thing. Or, hey, divorce, or some of these things that are really terrible, usually caused by the stress of the business. And we always tell folks, hey, get in front of that. And there's a recipe, and it's pretty simple to build a valuable business that doesn't require you. And if you can do that on the front end as opposed to the back end, not only is it going to be worth a lot more, but it's just going to give you a much better quality of life as you build it.
100%. And it goes back to that quote. You will not truly succeed unless you bring in and hire people that are better than you, or at minimum equivalent to you in their own disciplines. So
it.
yeah, and like you just said too, 100%. Like if the owner is a integral part of the business running day to day or even week to week, your business is not worth much, because if somebody wants to buy it, they're not going to get you. I mean, maybe they'll get you for a little bit of time as an employee, but if you're the business, you've not done a good service, and you've not been a good steward to your business either.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we're getting towards the end of our time. I've got two questions I usually close with. So I'll give them both to you, and then we can go kind of 1-2. But what would you tell a 25-year-old looking to start a business today, kind of 2026, with all the chaos in the market, all the good things in the market? And then let's close with, what is a tool, a book, a resource, or something that just was a game changer to you in your life or in business?
Okay. So a 25-year-old, start with that. The first thing that I would say is find something you're passionate about. That is important too. That's actually quite important. Or find something that you can become passionate about. And whatever that is, for me, it was software development, business, and I knew I wanted to go into something with those two things. So write it down, whatever it is, write it down. And then 2, find and identify very clearly the problem that you're solving. What it is. Is it a real problem for the people you're trying to solve it for? Or is it in your head? If it's just your problem that you're dealing with something, that's not good evidence. You need to validate, talk at least 4, 5, 10 people would be great, making sure that this is a real problem for them. And then 3, I mean, these are very similar to what we talked about earlier, is set your mind on it, commit, like not for a couple weeks or a couple months, whether it's your money, your time, whatever it might be, put your commitment into it and put your energy into it, and don't stop. Run it like it's the last thing you're going to do. And with that combination, that's where you start to get to those high 90s in success. You drop one of those, and you're dropping off real quick. So find that.
I want to touch on
even
number
start.
2 too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to touch on number 2 as well, Dean, because that one I think has gotten twisted. So for our listeners, find something that's going to serve other people, a problem that other people are experiencing. And I'll give you a story. So I went into a coffee shop 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was 2 blocks away from our office. I walked in there, and it was kind of just a funky setup. And so I was like, wow, this is, how'd you come up with this? And the coffee shop owner was like, well, I just made a coffee shop that of all the things I want to do and the way I want to hang out. And I said, that's interesting. So did you ask any of your other friends or the people that buy coffees, like what they would want? He's like, no, I don't really care about that. I'm confident, and this is a really nice young man, but I'm very confident he's not going to do well long term, because he asked the wrong question. We all want to do things that we want to do, but we also need to get paid by the people that are like, hey, I need you to solve this problem, like you said. So I love that. I think that's a really important distinction.
100% agreed. Now, there are some people that are in a unique position to where they're around other people that are dealing with that problem. I know plenty of them, and they might maybe run an insurance company or something, and they've identified a need that all insurance companies have, and they know they validated it because they talk to their insurance company friends. Well, you got your validation. That's good. Build it. Unless you're really, really, really good at understanding what everybody else will need, it's best to validate it.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
yeah.
I love it. All right, so let's close with a tool, a book, a resource, anything that over the past 3 to 6 months you're like, this has been a game changer for either me personally.
Yeah, there's a few good ones. I'm huge on books, podcasts. I mean, learning in general, it's a hobby of mine, if you will. I'd probably say one of the big ones that I read recently was probably last year or so. Scaling People. She was the COO of Stripe, and she came in Stripe, the payment system, Claire Hughes. She came into them. This is probably like 10 years ago or something, but she came into Stripe when they were brand new, and they were 20-year-old, VC funded, MIT kids. I don't know where they went to school, but they were young and they were just ambitious and wanted to build what became Stripe, which is now one of the biggest ones out there. And she talked about how she did it. And she talked about the systems she put in place. But the one thing that I really got out of that is what she called an operating system. So very similar to some of the things you were describing earlier that you have, but it's basically kind of like an SOP for your business. I like to keep it high level. We did it in a Google slide. It's probably 10 pages total, and it's a work in progress. So we just keep building it. It defines how we do meetings, how we make decisions, and it's tribal. It's not just me. It's all of our input goes into that. But scaling people, it's a little techy. It's kind of for the tech side, but that was a good one. Multipliers was another really good book. Drive by Daniel Pink. It's a bit older, but that was a good book. Autonomy, Mastery, and Purpose. All of those really, I would read those and definitely and that's another thing about if you want to start your business, learn. Be a constant learner. Do not ever stop that. So, yeah.
I love it. Let's end on that. Always be learning.
Yes.
Dean Mathews, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for giving us your time. And thank you for joining the Exceptional Business Podcast. And we will see you on down the road.
It's been a pleasure for us. I really, really appreciate you letting me come on here and share my knowledge.
Absolutely. Appreciate you.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Exceptional Companies Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or via RSS so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you liked this show, please reach out through our website, www.excoadvisors.com, for free tools to order a copy of Selling Main Street, or to sign up for our free webinar on how to sell your Main Street business.